Hey guys, tonight we're leaving behind the cold fjords and snowbound nights of the north and stepping instead into the heat of another kind of darkness, one that glows with incense, blood, and sacred fire. Tonight we walk beneath the temples of the ancient Mayan world, where desire and devotion blur until they become the same word. The jungle breathes heavy here, thick and wet and alive, and every leaf seems to whisper an old secret about the price of pleasure and the shape of faith. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as always, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand in the grey light before dawn, barefoot in the courtyard of a temple whose walls still breathe with warmth from the fires of the night. The air tastes like metal and flowers, the mingling of blood and incense, fresh sap and burnt copal. The jungle hums around you, heavy with the calls of unseen creatures and the distant murmur of priests chanting from inside the stone corridors. It is the year 830 AD, deep in the heart of the Mayan lowlands, and the world is just beginning to glow with the first light of another sacred day. The Mayans believe this hour, when the stars fade but the sun has not yet risen, belongs to the gods of transformation. It's when the veil between the human and the divine grows thin, when mortals can speak through blood, through breath, through the trembling of the body. Here desire isn't private, it's an act of devotion. And to experience pleasure is to risk being consumed by the gods themselves. A priest passes by, his bare chest painted black with soot, a necklace of jade beads clinking softly as he moves. He carries a bowl of obsidian shards, each fragment sharp enough to cut the skin of gods. Behind him follows a line of women draped in white cotton robes, their hair oiled and glistening, faces solemn and calm. They walk barefoot, each holding a small clay vessel filled with honey and flowers. Their silence isn't submission, it's ceremony. Every movement is calculated, ritualized, a choreography older than memory. You watch as the procession ascends the temple stairs. The sky lightens to deep indigo, and a single horn sounds low, resonant, like a heartbeat echoing through stone. Somewhere above, torches flare to life. The rituals are about to begin. The Mayans believed the body was the first temple, a sacred vessel for divine energy. But unlike Western faiths that separate purity from the flesh, the Mayans saw no contradiction in merging the two. Blood and breath, pain and pleasure, these were languages for speaking to the gods. To cut the skin, to pierce, to draw blood, that was prayer. To join bodies, to shudder, to reach that fragile moment between control and surrender, that was also prayer. The gods listened through sensation. The humid air clings to your skin. You hear the steady rhythm of drums begin, a heartbeat in perfect sync with the one pounding in your chest. The smell of copal grows thicker, sweet and suffocating. As the first rays of sunlight strike the upper steps, the priests raise their arms to the east. The women kneel, lowering their heads until their hair touches the ground. The ceremony is not violent yet, that comes later. For now it's anticipation, a gathering of breath before the storm. You notice how calm everyone is. There's no fear in their faces. For them, this isn't horror, it's harmony. The gods created the world by tearing their own bodies open, spilling themselves into form. Humanity was shaped from that divine wound. To return the gesture, to pierce, to bleed, to give the body back is to keep the universe balanced. In the quiet between drum beats, you hear a whisper, a voice reciting a prayer to Ixchel, goddess of the moon, of fertility, of weaving and childbirth. Her worshippers were often midwives and lovers both, women who saw no line between creation and desire. She was both gentle and terrifying, her beauty radiant, her hunger endless. The women in white are hers tonight. A sudden gust of wind moves through the courtyard, scattering petals across the stone. The priest kneels before a stone altar carved with serpents and eyes. He dips his fingers into a bowl of crimson pigment, not paint, but blood mixed with tree sap. He marks his forehead, then his chest, tracing the same spiral pattern found in the glyph for life. Around him, the others do the same, their movements rhythmic, trance-like. You realize this isn't performance. It's invocation. The entire city is built to mirror the cosmos. Every plaza, every stair, every temple aligned to the sun, the stars, the pulse of time itself. To move here is to move within the body of creation. The people are not separate from the gods. They are extensions of them, veins through which the divine still bleeds. The drums quicken. A conch shell wails. The first priest raises a stingray spine between his fingers, sharp and shining. He presses it to his tongue and draws it across, opening a thin red line that gleams in the morning light. He winces, not in agony but reverence. The blood falls into the bowl below, hissing softly as it meets the hot coals. The air fills with the scent of copper and smoke. The women begin to sway, their bodies moving in slow, circular patterns, hair whipping through the incense. It isn't sensual, not in the way you expect. It's sacred exhaustion, a physical prayer, each movement a bridge between the human and the celestial. You realize how far this is from anything the modern world would recognize as religion or pleasure. Here the flesh is not shameful, it's the altar itself. And for a moment, as the drums rise and the sun finally crests over the jungle canopy, you feel it, that strange mix of awe and unease, beauty and terror. The realization that for the Mayans, the body was never private, it was a vessel for eternity. Somewhere in the distance, a jaguar growls. The sound rolls through the trees like thunder. The drums pause, and the temple falls silent. A priest lifts his arms and speaks a single word in a language that sounds like stone grinding on stone. And with that, the ceremony of creation begins. The sun is higher now, its heat pressing down on the stone courtyard until the air itself seems to shimmer. Smoke rises in slow columns from the torches set around the temple's edge. The scent of burnt copal clings to everything. Your skin, your hair, your breath. You can almost taste it, sweet and bitter at once. The chants that began in whispers now roll through the plaza like waves, growing louder, heavier, until they seem to shake the earth beneath your bare feet. You step closer to the temple. Its walls are carved with faces. Not human exactly, but something between man and God. Each one seems to breathe in rhythm with the chanting, their open mouths stained red from centuries of offerings. You realize that what you're hearing isn't a single voice, but hundreds layered over one another in precise rhythm. It's not chaos, it's calculation. Before you, the nobles of the city gather in a circle. Their skin gleams with oil, their bodies painted in patterns of red, white and black. The colors of the underworld, the heavens and the living earth. Feathers of quetzal and macaw shimmer in the sunlight, bright enough to make your eyes ache. Gold glints from nose rings, earrings, anklets. But it's the eyes that hold you, calm, focused, unblinking. These people have come not to watch but to participate. Two priests approach the altar. They move in deliberate unison, as though their bodies are guided by something unseen. Between them they carry a bundle wrapped in woven cloth, darkened with age. When they place it on the altar and unfold it, you see what's inside, a collection of obsidian knives, their edges sharp enough to catch the light like water. Each blade has been polished until it gleams like black glass. You hear the hum of a conch shell, deep and resonant, followed by a single word. A name, maybe, called into the air. The circle parts. From its edge steps a man and a woman. They are young, both finely dressed, their faces marked with intricate lines of red pigment. Their hands are clasped, not out of affection but obligation. They walk together toward the altar. This is no wedding as you know it. It's a ritual of union, one that transcends desire or even choice. For the Mayans, sex wasn't recreation. It was a reenactment of creation itself. the joining of male and female, sun and moon, heaven and earth. Every movement had to mirror the cosmic pattern. To fail was to offend the gods. To succeed was to sustain the world for another season. The couple kneel before the altar. The priests stand behind them, chanting in a language so old it feels less spoken than breathed. A third priest steps forward carrying a bowl of balhay, a thick honeyed liquid brewed from fermented bark and hallucinogenic herbs. He dips a cup into it and raises it to the lips of the woman, then the man. They drink deeply. The bitterness makes their faces twist, but neither hesitates. Moments later, their pupils widen. The world begins to shift for them. Colors deepen, shadows ripple. You can almost feel it too, as if the jungle itself is inhaling. The drums begin again, slow and rhythmic, matching the pace of their breathing. The circle closes tighter. The priests lower their torches, bathing the scene in red-orange light. The couple begin to move. Slowly at first, their gestures guided by the rhythm of the drums. This isn't passion, it's precision, an ancient choreography handed down through generations. Their hands trace the symbols of creation in the air, the serpent coil, the spiral of time, the crossing of life and death. Sweat glistens on their skin, mingling with the painted lines that begin to run down their bodies like melting ink. When they touch, it's reverent, not tender. You realize you're witnessing something closer to invocation than intimacy. The priests chant louder, their words sharp and percussive. The heat builds until it feels like the air itself might burst. The drums quicken. You can feel the vibration in your chest, in your bones, in the soles of your feet. The man presses his forehead to the woman's, their breaths mingling. The priest lifts one of the obsidian knives, its blade flashing black and blue in the light. He draws it carefully across his own arm, letting a thin line of blood drip into a bowl beside the couple. The other priests do the same, their blood mixing together dark and thick. It's not violence, it's offering. The gods don't demand life, only participation. The woman tilts her head back, her voice rising in a sound that's neither scream nor song. It's the sound of the body turning itself inside out, of surrender, of invocation. The priests echo her cry, their chants now nearly a roar. For the Mayans, this was the holiest sound of all, the merging of pleasure and pain into a single expression, proof that the divine could still be reached through mortal skin. When the drums stop, the silence feels like the air after lightning, charged, trembling, waiting for release. The couple kneel together, heads bowed. The priest pours the blood from the bowl onto the stone beneath them. It hisses when it hits the surface, steam rising in ghostly tendrils. The smell is sweet and metallic, dizzying. Then, as if nothing extraordinary has happened, the crowd begins to hum softly, a sound like the jungle itself sighing. The priests help the couple to their feet. They are weak, trembling, eyes half-focused. The balkai still runs through their veins, but their work is done. The gods have been appeased for another day. Around you, the people begin to disperse. Some carry the blood-soaked cloths away to burn. Others kneel in private prayer. The air feels different now, heavier, but also peaceful. You realize that here, in this world, every act of the body is a form of worship. The distinction between holiness and hunger doesn't exist. You look again at the temple, its carvings gleaming in the sunlight, and you can't help but wonder, did the gods ever grow tired of being fed by devotion this fierce? Or did they too tremble when the mortals called them down through flesh and flame? The drums fall silent, the wind moves through the trees again, and somewhere far off a bird screams like a whistle cutting through the heat. Another day has begun in the empire of blood and breath. The day deepens into gold and shadow, the heat pressing against the jungle until it seems to hum. Cicadas pulse in waves, their rhythm echoing faintly beneath the lingering drums. You walk through the dense canopy toward another temple, the temple of Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, its white limestone steps blazing under the late sun. The air is thick with the smell of wet leaves, sweat and smoke. You can hear chanting already, low and winding, coiling through the air like the creature it invokes. It is the year 830 AD, and tonight belongs to the serpent god. To the Mayans, Kukulkan isn't a symbol of sin or temptation. He is the living bridge between earth and sky, the endless spiral of creation itself. His worship is sensual, but never simple. He represents both ascent and descent, pleasure that leads to enlightenment, desire that ends in sacrifice. At the base of the temple, the crowd gathers. Torches burn in carved stone bowls. The flicker of their flames dances across hundreds of faces. Priests, warriors, women with braided hair and painted skin, merchants, children, even captives taken in raids, all stand together, bound by awe. In the Mayan world, everyone belongs to the same pattern. No act is too sacred or too carnal to escape the god's attention. From the temple's shadowed entrance, two figures emerge. One is a priestess, her skin coated in pale blue clay that cracks slightly with each movement. Around her neck hangs a necklace of jade and shell, shimmering green like serpent scales. Her eyes are lined with soot, and when she looks out across the crowd, it's as if she sees not people but waves of energy, bodies as vessels for something divine. Beside her stands a man, taller, his chest painted with spirals and jaguar spots, his arms streaked with ash. His expression is calm, almost serene. They are the chosen pair, the human reflection of the feathered serpent's eternal dance, air and earth, man and woman, motion and stillness. The drums begin again, slower this time, steady as a heartbeat. From the top of the temple, a horn bellows, echoing through the valley. The priestess raises her hands, and the people fall silent. The only sound left is the crackle of fire and the faraway cry of a bird disappearing into dusk. Then the ritual begins. They move together, not as lovers, not yet, but as elements meeting. The priestess circles the man, her fingers tracing the air near his skin, but never touching. He follows her rhythm, their movements deliberate, symbolic. To the Mayans, this is creation reenacted, the gods shaping the world through the union of opposites. Behind them, acolytes beat small drums and rattle bone instruments. The tempo rises, matching the breath of the two figures. The priestess begins to chant, her voice rising and falling in tones that sound less like words and more like invocation. The man answers in kind, his voice lower, rougher, almost like thunder answering rain. A priest steps forward with a bowl of liquid, honey mixed with ground flowers, and the powdered skin of hallucinogenic toads. The priestess dips her fingers into it, and marks the man's chest with a spiral, the glyph of Kukulkan himself. The mixture glistens in the torchlight, golden and wet. Then she traces the same mark on her own body, over her heart. The air changes. The crowd exhales in unison, as though the jungle itself joins them. The man kneels, and the priestess places her hand on his head. Her voice rises again, higher, sharper, as if calling something down from the sky. The torches flare, their flames bending suddenly inward, as though pulled by a breath too large to be human. The serpent has arrived, not in flesh, but in presence. The man and woman begin to move faster, their bodies finally meeting, paint smearing into patterns of blue, red, and black. It's not eroticism, it's invocation through motion, a human echo of divine energy. Every breath, every gesture is precise. The priests circle them, throwing handfuls of crushed flowers and powdered resin into the fire. The smoke thickens, curling upward in twisting columns that look like scaled bodies writhing into the night sky. The chanting grows louder, the air trembling with the vibration of hundreds of voices calling the same name, Kukulkan. The two figures seem to blur in the smoke and torchlight, their movements becoming something other than human, a rhythm too fluid for the body to hold. Then it happens, the moment the ritual demands. The man raises his arm, and a priest steps forward, handing him a sliver of obsidian. He doesn't hesitate. With one swift motion, he cuts his own chest above the heart. The wound small but deep. Blood wells up, dark and gleaming. The priestess mirrors him, drawing her own cut in the same place. Together they press their wounds to one another's, letting their blood mingle. The crowd gasps. But it isn't horror they feel. It's reverence. To the Mayans, this is the purest form of offering. Two bodies joined by pain become a single vessel for divine creation. Blood is the only language the gods truly understand. The drumming slows. The couple sinks to their knees, exhausted, trembling. A priest steps forward, collecting their mingled blood in a clay bowl. He lifts it high toward the temple peak, chanting. The firelight dances across his face, illuminating the streaks of red that run down his arms. The gods have been fed again. As the final chant fades, the priestess looks up at the stars, her eyes wide, unfocused, caught somewhere between worlds. For her, the boundary between the human and the divine is gone. She has become the serpent's breath, the spark between the scales. When the crowd disperses, the jungle is silent once more. The smoke rises in thin ribbons into the night sky. Somewhere above, the stars seem brighter, as if reflecting the glow of blood on the stones below. You realize that for the Mayans, sex was never about pleasure, and sacrifice was never about cruelty. Both were ways of sustaining the same fragile balance, the heartbeat between creation and destruction. To them, to touch another body was to hold the entire universe in your hands, trembling, alive, and always hungry. As the moon climbs over the temple, the fires die to embers and the air cools. The serpent has been fed, and the world will turn once more. Morning breaks through the canopy in narrow shafts of light, golden and soft, but the warmth never reaches the stones. The jungle exhales mist, and everything glistens, the leaves, the temples, even the scars. You stand near the sacred pool at the foot of another pyramid, watching its surface ripple like liquid jade. The priests say this cenote is a mouth of the earth, a place where human blood meets the gods' reflection. It's here, under the watch of dawn, that the ritual of purity begins. You can smell honey and sweat on the air, the faint tang of metal too, a sweetness that hides the promise of pain. Men and women gather side by side, dressed in white cotton robes dyed faintly pink with past ceremonies. Each carries a bundle of stingray spines, thorns or shards of obsidian, all chosen for one purpose: to open the body. For the Mayans, purity isn't abstinence, it's offering. It's not about denying the flesh, but perfecting it, stripping away its impurities until only devotion remains. Pleasure and pain are two halves of the same circle, like the sun and moon feeding each other endlessly. The act of piercing the flesh isn't mutilation, it's conversation. The high priest stands by the water, his chest already marked with red lines. He speaks softly, almost kindly, his words describing the balance of sacrifice, how every act of bloodletting strengthens the world's bones. The participants listen, eyes lowered, bodies trembling not in fear but anticipation. The first to kneel is a young warrior. His arms are painted with spirals, his hair bound in woven cords. He holds a stingray spine between his fingers, polished smooth from handling. His expression is calm, reverent. He presses it to his tongue and draws it slowly through, splitting the skin. Blood beads and falls into the bowl before him. No one looks away, no one flinches. Then the others follow. Some draw the spines through their earlobes, their lips, their thighs. Others pierce the flesh around the navel, letting the blood flow freely down to the earth. The women, priestesses, wives, and daughters of nobles, are no exception. They work with quiet precision, their faces serene. The stingray spines pierce their skin as easily as a needle through cloth. And then comes the part you were warned about, the genital bloodletting. To the Mayans, this is the holiest act of all. It's not about cruelty or shame, it's creation reenacted, life's gate reopened, pain turned to prayer. Men pierce their foreskins with thorns or bone needles, threading rough cords through the wound so that blood may flow freely onto paper strips. The women mirror them, drawing blades across their own skin, collecting what falls in woven cloth. They hold the blood up toward the rising sun. Steam lifts from it as it meets the morning air, rising in delicate threads that vanish into light. A priest moves among them, collecting the soaked papers, feeding them to a brazier filled with burning copal. The smoke that rises is thick, fragrant, hypnotic. It's said that the gods appear in that smoke, their forms shifting within the spirals, their faces visible only for a heartbeat before fading. The priests watch carefully. Every curl, every flicker is an omen. You realize this isn't brutality. It's communication. Body to deity, wound to wind. The Mayans believed that the gods sacrificed themselves first, bleeding the stars into existence. To give blood is to return the favor. The sting, the heat, the smell, it all belongs to the same divine language. When the cuts are done, the priests wash the wounds with honey and herbs, murmuring prayers for healing. The participants are pale but peaceful. Their bodies tremble not with agony but release. You can see it in their faces, that strange serenity that follows pain transformed into purpose. Nearby, a woman in her middle years, a noble, by the jewelry that gleams against her collarbone, takes a long breath. Her fingers are stained with blood, her eyes fixed on the sun. She doesn't look broken, she looks awakened. The priests chant again, low and slow. The rhythm is the same as the heartbeat you can feel in your own chest. You watch as the blood running along the stone steps trickles toward the cenote. The water accepts it without ripple, without hesitation. It turns the faintest shade of red before the current carries it into the earth. In that moment, the jungle is silent. Even the birds have stopped calling. You can feel the gravity of it. The sense that this act, this pain, keeps the world in balance. That the line between human and divine is thinner than a cut of obsidian, and just as sharp. As the last offerings are made, the sun breaks fully through the mist, turning the smoke golden. The participants rise slowly, swaying, some smiling faintly through tears. The priests walk among them, marking their foreheads with ash, a sign that they've spoken with the gods and been heard. The air smells of resin and blood and flowers. It's intoxicating. You can almost understand it. This need to give something of the body to keep the sky from falling. The young warrior from before looks up at the light. His wound still weeping, a priest presses a hand to his shoulder, steadying him, whispering a blessing you can't quite hear. His face glows with quiet pride. For him, pain isn't punishment. It's proof. You look back at the cenote, at the faint red mist still swirling over its surface. The reflection of the temple shimmers there, broken by ripples, as though the gods themselves are moving beneath. In the Mayan world, every drop of blood is an echo of the first dawn, the moment when gods tore their own flesh open to create life. To bleed is to imitate divinity, to hurt is to remember creation. And as the drums begin again, slow and deep, you can't tell anymore where devotion ends and the body begins. The jungle shifts again as the day wanes. The air grows heavier, thicker with heat and sound, frogs croaking, insects thrumming, a low wind whispering through the trees. The temple rises above it all like a living thing, its stones slick with moss, its stairway glowing orange in the light of 100 torches. It's night now in the city of the gods, and the ceremony that begins after dark is one not all are meant to witness. You hear them before you see them, the slow beat of drums, deep and deliberate, echoing through the courtyards. It's not the rhythm of battle or harvest. It's slower, more primal, a heartbeat meant to guide breath and body. Each strike lands like a pulse under your ribs. The smell of Balkay wine, sweet and fermented, mixes with the smoke of burning copal. The air is so thick with it that it stings your eyes. You follow the sound through the narrow passages of the temple until it opens into a vast chamber lit by firelight, the walls covered in carvings of gods and serpents entwined. The floor is covered in petals, red and gold, and the scent is intoxicating, sweet and decaying at once. In the center of the room lies a low stone platform. Upon it, silk cloths shimmer in the light. Around it, priests move in circles, their robes stained with dried pigment, their mouths red from the berries they've chewed to heighten trance. The air hums with anticipation. You can feel it in your skin, your breath, the way every sound seems to wait for something. Then, from the shadows, they bring in the chosen. Some walk, swaying slightly from the effects of balquet and herbs. Others are carried, their eyes glazed, their bodies limp but breathing. They've been prepared for this, washed and perfumed, dressed in the finest cotton, painted with spirals of black and gold. Their wrists are bound loosely with soft cord. Some are captives, taken in raids, others are volunteers, or claim to be. In this world, the line between offering and victim blurs easily beneath the will of gods. The priest at the head of the ceremony raises a hand, and the drums stop. His voice fills the room, slow and melodic, describing the purpose of what's about to happen. To the Mayans, this isn't cruelty, it's continuation. The act about to unfold is the retelling of the gods' own union, their creation of life through pain, their transformation through surrender. What outsiders might call lust or violence, the Mayans understood as balance. The participants are anointed with oil and honey, their skin glistening in the light. One of the priests begins to chant, the syllables low and rhythmic. The others join, their voices weaving into a sound that vibrates in your bones. The effect is hypnotic. You feel your breath slow to match the rhythm. The chosen are placed upon the platform, 2, 3 at a time, their bodies positioned with care. The priests move like dancers around them, touching foreheads, tracing patterns on skin with obsidian dust. No movement is accidental. Every gesture mirrors the myth of the gods' union, every breath an echo of creation. Balquet flows freely. The air is filled with the smell of honey and alcohol, sweat and smoke. The chosen begin to move, their bodies guided more by trance than by will. This is not passion, at least not in any mortal sense. It's performance, devotion, transformation. Their eyes are unfocused, their voices rising and falling in moans that sound closer to prayer than pleasure. The priests watch carefully. They time their chants to each motion, each gasp, each tremor. They say the body is a bridge, and if crossed correctly, it opens the path between worlds. But the bridge demands toll, and that toll is always blood. When the moment peaks, when the air grows almost too heavy to breathe, the high priest steps forward with the ceremonial blade. It's small, curved, made of obsidian, polished to mirror the torchlight. He doesn't shout, he doesn't threaten. He simply kneels, murmurs a prayer to the goddess Ixchel, and presses the blade gently against the thigh of one of the chosen. Blood wells instantly, bright and thick. The woman's breath catches, but she doesn't scream. The others move closer, their bodies trembling, their eyes shining with tears or trance. The priest dips his fingers into the blood and smears it across his own chest in a spiral. Around him, the others begin to hum again, louder, faster. For the Mayans, this isn't punishment. It's completion. The union is sacred, but it must be sealed. Blood and breath together are the language of gods, and each act of wounding is a signature on the eternal contract between the divine and the human. You watch as the priests lift the wounded woman gently from the platform, her body limp but peaceful. Her blood stains the altar cloth, turning gold into rust. Another participant takes her place, already swaying in trance. The ritual continues. The drums build again. The rhythm grows chaotic, frantic, until it becomes one continuous roar. The crowd outside the temple begins to chant too, the sound of hundreds of voices merging with the pulse of the drums. The priests raise their arms, their bodies glistening with sweat and blood. The room feels alive, vibrating as if the walls themselves are breathing. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it stops. Silence crashes over the chamber. The priests lower their arms. The firelight dims. The chosen lie still, some unconscious, some trembling, some whispering prayers that sound like sighs. The air reeks of smoke and iron. One by one, the priests extinguish the torches. Only the brazier at the altar remains lit. Its flame small and steady. The high priest lifts the blood-soaked cloth from the stone, folds it carefully, and places it into the fire. The smoke that rises is dark red, curling toward the ceiling before vanishing. You stand there, heart pounding, not sure whether to be horrified or awed. For the Mayans, this was transcendence, the union of desire and death, of life given back to the gods who first gave it. To them, the body isn't sacred because it's untouched. It's sacred because it's willing. As the final ember fades, the high priest turns to the crowd and speaks one last phrase, something that sounds like both warning and promise. Every pleasure must end in offering. Outside, the wind moves through the jungle again. Cool and quiet, the moon reflects off the temple steps, pale as bone. And for a moment, as the smoke thins and the night deepens, you could almost believe the gods are still here, listening, waiting, and hungry. The morning after such a night is never quiet. The jungle hums louder than before, as if echoing the echoes, as if the earth itself remembers what has been offered to it. But within the walls of the palace, silence reigns. It is the sacred hour of the women. You walk through long corridors where light filters through lattices of carved stone. The air is cool and fragrant with crushed flowers, a rare reprieve from the smoke and sweat of the temple grounds. This is where the queens and priestesses perform their secret devotion, not the public spectacles of the courtyard, but the private offerings whispered to the moon. You step into a chamber lined with painted murals. They depict women kneeling before the gods, their hands raised, their faces serene, their blood flowing in thin lines like red threads across the stone. The scent of honey, herbs, and iron clings to the air. It is the year 830 AD, deep within the Mayan city of Yaxchilan, and this chamber belongs to Lady Yaxuk, wife of King Shield Jaguar, mother of heirs, and priestess of the goddess Ixchel. Her name means clarity, but her deeds are remembered for darkness. She is one of the few women whose bloodletting ritual was carved in stone for eternity, her hand holding a thorned rope drawn through her tongue, her face serene as blood drips onto sacred paper. The chamber fills slowly. Women of the royal household enter barefoot, carrying bowls of jade, honey, and water. Their faces are painted white with kaolin clay, their lips stained red with berries. At the center of the room lies an altar of polished limestone, its surface engraved with spirals and stars. A single flame flickers atop it, small but steady. No drums here, no chanting crowds, just the soft sound of breath. A high priestess steps forward, older, calm, her voice no louder than a whisper. She recites the words that open the path between the human and divine. Through pain the gods are fed, through blood the moon awakens. Lady Exoke kneels. Her robe slips from her shoulders, revealing skin marked with faint scars, each one a memory of devotion. She takes a deep breath, her eyes half closed, her hands steady. In her lap rests a small basket of stingray spines, their tips dark with dried blood from earlier rites. She chooses one, the largest, and holds it up toward the flame. The firelight dances along its edge. Around her the women begin to hum softly, not words but a sound that rises and falls like the tide. She presses the spine to her tongue. There is no hesitation. The cut is slow, deliberate. Blood wells instantly, dark against her lips, dripping down her chin. She doesn't flinch. She threads a length of bark paper through the wound, pulling it gently, letting each movement draw more blood. The red stains the paper in long, uneven lines. When she is done, she folds it carefully, places it in the jade bowl, and offers it to the flame. The smoke that rises is sweet and heavy, curling upward in delicate tendrils. The women kneel lower, their foreheads to the floor, They whisper prayers to Xchel, goddess of weaving, of childbirth, of the moon's hidden face. To bleed for her is not punishment. It is power. The Mayans believed women carried divine energy through their ability to create life. But creation demanded balance, and balance demanded sacrifice. The goddess herself was said to have bled to bring the moon into being. Her priestesses mirror that act, opening themselves to share her burden. As Lady Sok breathes through the pain, her eyes change, her body trembles, but her face remains calm, eyes rolling slightly upward. The priestess at her side steadies her, whispering, "You are between worlds." And she is. For the Mayans, trance was a bridge. Through the loss of blood came visions, not hallucinations, but communications from the gods. Within the flicker of the flame, Lady Ixo begins to see shapes forming, serpents coiling through smoke, ancestors rising with faces painted in jade and bone. One steps forward, his voice soft but resonant. He carries a bundle of cloth and says her name, not with sound but with vibration. She understands it in her bones. He tells her the harvest will fail if the offerings weaken, that the gods hunger more now, that the drought creeping across the land is not the sky's anger, but its thirst. She must bleed again. And soon her eyes snap open. The chamber returns. The women around her hum still, unaware of what she has seen. The priestess kneels beside her, collecting the ashes from the burning paper. The ritual is complete. The women rise slowly, one by one, each pressing their fingertips to the blood still drying on Lady Sok's chin. They whisper her name, not in reverence, but in solidarity. For them, devotion is survival. Outside, the city stirs. The first rays of the sun catch the tops of the temples, turning the limestone gold, but inside the Queen's chamber, the air remains thick with smoke and silence. Lady So sits still, breathing slowly, the copper taste of blood fading into sweetness. In her mind the vision lingers, serpents and ancestors whispering that balance is slipping. You realize that in this world faith is never gentle. It cuts, it bleeds, it feeds, and yet it endures. As she closes her eyes again, a single drop of blood falls to the floor, sinking into the limestone. It joins thousands of others, small, forgotten, but eternal, and for the Mayans that was enough to keep the moon alive for one more night. The jungle dusk feels different tonight, still, reverent, almost tender. The sky glows a dull bronze, as the sun sinks behind the ceiba trees, their roots tangled like veins through the dark soil. The air smells of rain and ash. From the distance, you hear the deep, rhythmic sound of conch shells, long, drawn-out notes that seem to stretch time itself. They mark the beginning of a ceremony older than any empire, one whispered about more than witnessed, the joining of the living with the dead. It is the year 830 AD, near Kopan, in one of the sacred burial grounds reserved for warriors and nobles. The ground is soft here, damp from recent storms, and the stone altars glisten in the fading light. Torches burn low, their flames bending in the humid air. You follow the procession, priests dressed in jaguar skins and crimson paint, carrying bundles of incense, flowers, and obsidian blades. Behind them come women veiled in white, walking barefoot through mud and petals. They move silently, eyes downcast, the fabric of their garments clinging to their bodies in the heat. These are the consorts, chosen to accompany the dead into the afterlife. To the Mayans, death isn't an ending, it's migration, from one layer of existence to another. But the passage isn't solitary. Certain souls, deemed too powerful or beloved, require companionship on their journey, and in this belief lies the ritual you're about to see, a fusion of devotion, desire, and death that binds the living and the departed forever. At the center of the clearing lies the body of a warrior, his skin painted red, his eyes sealed with small discs of jade. Around his neck, a necklace of teeth and shells gleams faintly. His chest is marked with spirals, the symbol of rebirth. His hands are folded across his stomach, clutching a blade of obsidian. Beside him kneels a young woman, her face hidden behind a curtain of black hair. She trembles slightly but doesn't move away. Her wrists are adorned with cords of woven fibre, not tight enough to restrain, only to remind. She has been prepared for this since morning, bathed, anointed, fed sweet balquet, until her senses drifted between waking and dream. The high priest approaches the body, his voice carrying over the silence. He chants the warrior's name, invoking the gods of death, Puch, lord of the underworld, and the darker aspects of Ixchel, who governs rebirth through blood. The crowd echoes his words, a low murmur that rolls like distant thunder. Then he turns to the woman. She lifts her head slightly, and for the first time you see her face. She's not afraid, at least not in the way you expect. Her eyes are unfocused, pupils wide, her lips parted in something between surrender and trance. The priest gestures for her to begin. She moves closer to the warrior's body, her breath shallow, her hands trembling as they touch his skin. He is cold already, but the oils and herbs rubbed into his flesh make him gleam in the torchlight. Around them the chanting grows louder, deeper. The priests circle, each holding a torch high. The flames flicker across carvings of skulls and serpents, etched into the surrounding stones. To the Mayans, this act is not desecration, it's sanctification, the fulfillment of a sacred contract between life and death. The woman becomes a vessel, her body the bridge through which the dead may feel one last surge of life before departing. She leans forward, her hair falling across his chest, her lips brushing his skin. The crowd doesn't look away. This is not voyeurism, it's reverence. Every gesture, every breath is symbolic, a merging of the human with the eternal. The priests chant faster now, their voices shaking the air. The woman's movements grow slower, then still. She lowers her head against the warrior's chest, her hands pressed to his heart. The priest steps forward, lifting an obsidian blade, small, curved, perfectly polished. He murmurs a prayer and touches the tip of it to her shoulder. A single drop of blood falls onto the warrior's skin. It spreads, dark and glistening, mingling with the painted spiral over his heart. The priest nods. The offering is accepted. The crowd exhales together, a long collective breath. The woman doesn't move again. Her breathing slows, her head still resting on his chest. You realize she's gone, her body surrendered to the trance and the poison of the balquet. For the Mayans, this isn't tragedy, it's transcendence. The living and the dead have merged, two halves of one sacred transition. The priests step forward again, covering both bodies with white cloth. They sprinkle petals of marigold and crushed jade across them. Then, with solemn care, they lower the pair into the burial chamber carved beneath the altar. You hear the soft thud of earth being packed down, the dull rhythm of stones sliding into place. The chanting fades, the torches dim. One by one, the people withdraw into the trees, leaving only smoke curling upward into the night. For a long while, the clearing is still. Only the sound of the jungle remains. Frogs, wind, distant thunder. You stand there, staring at the freshly sealed stone, and you realize that to the Mayans, love and death were never enemies. They were mirrors, each reflecting the other, each demanding the same thing: surrender. To die was to give yourself back to the gods. To love was to practice dying in smaller ways, to let part of yourself dissolve into another being, another moment, another fate. The rain begins again, soft and slow. It falls over the altars, over the earth, over everything, and the smoke that rises from the ground smells faintly sweet, honey, blood, and flowers. You take a breath and let it fill you. For just a heartbeat you understand it, the strange, fragile piece of a world where even death is touched by tenderness. And somewhere far beyond the trees another conch sounds, announcing that one more soul has crossed the river of night. The jungle breathes again. Hot, wet, and full of secrets. The moon rises like a pearl through a canopy of black leaves, its pale light catching the silver threads of spiderwebs strung between trees. Somewhere in the distance, you hear drums again, faint but steady, calling you deeper into the forest. This isn't the temple or the courtyard or the palace now. This is where the ceremonies no one wrote about take place. The ones whispered in code, buried in rumor, performed far from the eyes of kings and priests. It is the year 831 AD, deep in the southern lowlands near Tikal. The air is thick with mist, and the ground squelches underfoot as you move through the undergrowth. Fireflies flicker like sparks from unseen fires. The closer you get, the stronger the smell of smoke and honey becomes. Balkay again, the Mayan sacred drink, but here it's mixed with crushed flowers and something else. Something earthy, intoxicating, almost hallucinatory. The drums grow louder. Their rhythm is slow, hypnotic, like the heartbeat of the forest itself. You finally see the clearing, a circle of torches surrounding a wide stone platform overgrown with vines. Around it, dozens of figures move, men and women both, naked but for paint and feathers. Their bodies gleam with oil, their faces hidden behind masks carved from wood and bone, jaguars, serpents, birds, and gods. Each mask is different, but the eyes behind them all shine with the same feverish light. These are not priests, not nobles, not servants. These are the unbound, farmers, dancers, warriors, even slaves. Tonight, they are all the same. The forbidden festivals belong to no one and everyone, hidden from the authority of kings but watched, the stories say, by the gods themselves. At the center of the circle stands a tall figure wearing the mask of a deer. His skin is painted red from throat to ankle, a color of both life and sacrifice. He holds a torch in one hand, a clay bowl in the other. The bowl is filled with balkay, so dark it looks like blood in the firelight. He lifts it, and the chanting begins. It's not language as you know it. The words are fragments of prayer, repeated and twisted until they lose meaning, becoming sound and rhythm instead. The drums follow, faster, then slower, then faster again. The dancers begin to move, circling, swaying, bending. Their movements are raw, almost feral, but precise in their rhythm. It's not chaos. It's the body remembering something older than reason. The deer-masked leader drinks deeply from the bowl, then passes it along. Each dancer drinks in turn. The liquid coats their lips, staining them dark. Within minutes, their movements shift. Their eyes grow heavy, their limbs looser, their breathing synchronized with the drums. What follows is not the ritual of bloodletting or sacrifice. It's something more primal, an act of transformation. The Mayans believed the gods could take any shape, and through ritual intoxication, dance, and union, humans could join them, if only for a night. The dancers shed their human names and become symbols. The woman with the serpent mask moves sinuously, her hands tracing the air like smoke. A man with a jaguar mask prowls around her, their movements circling, testing. Others join, their motions overlapping, the boundaries between individuals dissolving into rhythm and breath. The air grows thick with heat and scent, copal smoke, sweat, flowers crushed underfoot. The drums climb higher, the chanting grows louder, more frenzied. The dancers press closer together, their bodies glistening in firelight. Paint smears, feathers scatter, masks tilt and slip. The circle becomes a single breathing organism, human and god at once. You can feel it in your own pulse, that strange mixture of fear and awe, the awareness that what you're witnessing isn't indulgence, it's devotion to become godlike. One must dissolve the self. To lose control is to open the door. A woman collapses to her knees, trembling, her mask slipping free. Her face is streaked with tears and paint. She tilts her head back and laughs, a sound so wild it echoes through the trees. The others answer, voices blending into a chorus that feels like both joy and mourning. Then, suddenly, Silence. The deer-masked leader raises his arms. The drumming stops mid-beat. The dancers freeze, their chests heaving, eyes wide and bright in the torchlight. Smoke curls upward, illuminated in thin ribbons of blue and orange. He steps to the center, lifts a small obsidian knife, and cuts a shallow line across his own chest. Blood drips into the bowl still half filled with balkay. He stirs it once, then drinks again. The act isn't violent, it's reverent. The others follow, one by one, cutting small wounds into their skin, offering a drop of blood to the same bowl. When the last has bled, the deer-masked man lifts the bowl and pours it out across the earth. The liquid seeps into the soil, dark and glistening. The crowd exhales together. The ceremony is complete. No one speaks as they gather their masks and robes. They move quietly through the trees, vanishing one by one into the darkness, their footsteps muffled by wet leaves. Within minutes the clearing is empty again, save for the faint glow of dying torches and the hum of insects returning to the air. You stand in the smoke, the scent of honey and blood still clinging to your skin. The moonlight filters through the branches, cold and silvery now that the fires have gone out. You understand why this ritual is forbidden, not because it's obscene, but because it's liberating. In a world built on rules and hierarchies, this was rebellion, a night where all bodies were divine, all boundaries dissolved, and even the gods might have envied the freedom of human flesh. As you turn to leave, you glance back at the platform. In the ashes you see faint handprints, dozens of them pressed into the stone. They look almost alive in the moonlight, as if reaching up, still wanting. The jungle breathes again. The wind shifts, and somewhere in the dark a voice, or maybe just an echo, whispers a name you can't quite catch. The gods, it seems, never miss a festival. The wind has changed. It carries dust now, not perfume. The rivers are shrinking, their beds cracked and pale beneath the sun. The crops have turned brittle, their leaves whispering dry songs to a sky that refuses to answer. The gods, the priests say, have grown silent, and in the silence the people grow desperate. It is the year 835 AD, the beginning of the Great Decline. Cities that once shimmered with jade and fire are now quiet, their plazas half empty, their temples dark. The drought has lasted too long. The harvests have failed, the sacred calendars still turn, but the priests no longer trust them. The rituals, once acts of beauty, have become acts of pleading. You stand at the edge of a once grand city, its name lost to time, its stones half swallowed by the jungle. The air is thick and stagnant, heavy with the scent of decay. Birds circle overhead, silent. The cenotes have dried to muddy pits, their walls streaked with minerals like dried tears. In the main square, people gather, not for trade or festival, but for a ceremony of desperation. You can hear it before you see it. Drums, frantic and uneven. The rhythm is wrong, too fast, too wild. Smoke curls upward from the temple stairs, thick and black. At the top of the pyramid, a group of priests moves feverishly. Their robes are stained, their faces drawn. Once they led with grace and precision, now they shout and stumble, their chants distorted by hunger and exhaustion. The balance between pain and beauty. Once the cornerstone of Mayan ritual has begun to slip. Below, hundreds of people kneel. Many are gaunt, their ribs showing, their eyes hollow. They clutch offerings of maize that has turned to dust, flowers that have already wilted. Mothers hold children close, murmuring prayers into their hair. Everyone is waiting for the same thing: rain, salvation, a sign that the gods still hear. The drums stop. The high priest steps forward, his hands trembling. His voice cracks as he calls upon Chaka, the rain god, but even the name sounds weaker than before. When he finishes, the silence that follows is unbearable. The people bow their heads, waiting for thunder, for anything. But there is nothing. And so the priests do what priests have always done when the heavens turn away, they demand more. The sacrifices begin. It's not the measured ritual you've seen before, not the calm precision of the old rites. This is frenzy, panic disguised as devotion. Warriors drag captives up the steps, their cries swallowed by the roar of the crowd. The priests cut fast, their hands slick, their motions clumsy. Blood pools and runs down the stone steps, turning dust into mud. The women join the chant, their voices rising higher and higher until it becomes a shriek that pierces the air. The smell of blood mixes with smoke and sweat and the bitter tang of fear. You see a young priest fall to his knees, his knife slipping from his fingers. He begins to sob, loud, heaving cries that sound more human than holy. The others ignore him. They drag another victim forward. The bodies pile at the base of the altar. To the Mayans, death was supposed to renew the world, but now the offerings feel endless, empty. The gods remain silent, the clouds unmoved. The rituals that once sustained life have become desperate noise. As the sun reaches its zenith, the heat grows unbearable. The air shimmers with it. You watch as one of the women, her face painted, her arms streaked with blood, staggers forward and lifts her hands to the sky. She screams a name you can't understand, her voice raw and broken. Then she collapses. No one moves to help her. The priests light new torches. The air grows thick with burning herbs. Smoke fills the plaza, black and choking. In the haze, the people keep chanting, voices cracking, merging, dissolving. It sounds less like prayer now and more like madness. You think of the old rituals, the serene balance, the beauty hidden inside pain, and realize how fragile it all was. When faith frays, the body becomes the last tool. When the gods stop listening, the people bleed louder. Thunder rumbles, but it's only an echo. No rain follows. By dusk, the fires have burned low. The priests stand in silence, their arms limp at their sides. The crowd disperses slowly, stepping carefully over the blood-slick stones. The square smells of iron and smoke and something else, the faint sweetness of rot. Night falls heavy and humid. The torches sputter out. You look up at the sky, where the stars still glitter, untouched by everything below. The gods are watching, perhaps, but not intervening. The Mayans once believed the heavens could be moved by devotion, that the pulse of the human heart echoed through the cosmos. But now the rhythm falters. The world is changing, and the gods have grown distant. The priests, once the translators between the divine and the mortal, have become interpreters of silence. The temples still stand, but their steps are slick with ghosts. You close your eyes and imagine the sound of the old ceremonies, the steady drums, the soft chanting, the balance between pain and peace. But the sound that replaces it is different. The jungle has begun to reclaim the city. Vines creep over the altars. Roots split the stones. The wind whispers through the empty plazas like breath through bone. And in that wind, faint but clear, you can almost hear what remains of the old faith. A prayer not for gods but for memory. Because in the end, even the most sacred rituals fall quiet. Only the echoes remain. The jungle has swallowed everything now. What was once a city of flame and ceremony is only a mound of vines and stone. The temples rise like broken teeth from the soil, their faces cracked and streaked with moss. Parrots shriek in the treetops where banners once fluttered, and the air that used to tremble with drums now hums with the sound of insects and rain. It is the year 1100 AD, centuries after the collapse. The great cities of the Mayans lie abandoned, their plazas silent except for the echo of storms. Time has softened everything, the sharpness of obsidian, the pain of devotion, even the memory of fear, but the ghosts remain. You feel them in the humidity, in the pulse of the earth beneath your feet, in the scent of copal that still lingers faintly, impossibly on the air. You stand before what was once a temple. Its steps are half buried under ferns, its carvings worn smooth by centuries of rain. Yet if you look closely, you can still see them, the faint outlines of bodies intertwined, faces turned upward, blood carved as flowing ribbons of stone. The priests are gone, but their stories cling stubbornly to the walls. The jungle doesn't set to erase, it transforms. Inside, where the air is cooler and still, light spills through the cracks in the roof. Dust floats like gold in the shafts of sunlight. Bats cling to the ceiling, asleep, undisturbed. The floor is covered in fallen leaves, but beneath them lies a mosaic, the last testament of a world that once believed every breath could reach the gods. You kneel and brush the dirt away. The pattern emerges slowly. Two figures, a man and a woman, locked in an embrace beneath a serpent curling around them. Between them flows a stream of red pigment, faded but unmistakable. It's not violence, it's connection. You realize you're staring at the last depiction of the sacred union of Kukulkan, the god who bound heaven and earth, life and death, desire and devotion. The colors have dimmed, but the story still hums with power. You can almost hear the drums again, the chants, the sighs, the trembling. You can smell the incense, the honey, the copper tang of blood. The past doesn't vanish. It seeps, it lingers in the pores of the stones, in the cracks of the murals, in the spaces between breaths. You walk deeper into the temple, and your footsteps sound like whispers. The air grows heavy, cool, and wet. Somewhere in the distance, water drips, steady, rhythmic, like the slow heartbeat of the world. A single obsidian shard lies in the dust, its edge dulled but still catching the light. You pick it up, turning it between your fingers. Its surface reflects not your face but the faint shimmer of movement, as though someone were standing behind you. When you turn, the space is empty, but you can feel it. The press of presence, the faint brush of something ancient and human all at once. They're still here. The lovers, the queens, the warriors, the priests, the ones who bled and danced and prayed, who believed the body could open the door to eternity. They linger in this air, these stones, in every trembling of leaf and echo of thunder. For centuries, others have come here. Explorers, scholars, looters, dreamers, all trying to read the same silence. Some called the Mayans savage, others called them enlightened. Both missed the truth. The Mayans were neither monsters nor saints. They were human, brilliant, terrified, passionate, trying to hold the universe together with their own hands, their own skin, their own breath. You set the obsidian shard back down. A beam of light catches it, and for a moment it glows red again, like fresh blood. The image is fleeting, but it's enough to remind you every civilization bleeds for something, for power, for beauty, for faith. And when it collapses, what remains isn't the gods, but the echo of the human longing that built them. Outside, the rain begins again. The jungle sighs, the trees sway, and water trickles down the temple steps where blood once flowed. It's quiet, but not empty. The world breathes differently here, slower, deeper, as though remembering. You close your eyes and imagine it. The drums, the chanting, the shimmer of firelight on painted skin. You can almost see them moving through the smoke. The priests, the lovers, the dancers, their bodies golden in the flames. And just before the vision fades, one turns toward you. Her lips part, and you hear her whisper, not a curse, not a plea, but a truth. Nothing sacred ever dies. It just changes its name. The wind moves through the ruins, carrying her voice away into the trees. And as you step out into the rain, the last of the incense-scented air leaves the temple, rising, dispersing, and disappearing into the same grey sky that has watched all things come and go. Somewhere above the clouds, the gods are silent again, but the earth still hums with the memory of bodies and breath. The jungle exhales, the thunder rolls, and the ghosts of desire sleep, content, beneath the roots. The rain has become steady now, soft, rhythmic, endless. It drips from the leaves in slow silvery threads, the sound blending with the sigh of the forest. You stand in the ruins, surrounded by stone that once pulsed with music and flame, now softened by moss and time. The air tastes of earth and memory, the perfume of something long gone but never fully lost. If you listen carefully, you can still hear the echoes, not screams, not chants, but breath. The breath of 1,000 lives spent in worship, in fear, in awe. The breath of those who gave their bodies to the gods, not because they were monsters, but because they believed the universe could be kept alive through touch, through offering, through love that burned too bright to last. The jungle is patient. It remembers without judging. It covers the temples and bones alike, binding everything in roots and green silence. The gods sleep now, or perhaps they've simply become the rain, falling on the same soil that once drank blood, whispering the same lullaby to those who came after. You breathe deeply, the air warm and heavy, the sound of the rain wrapping around you like fabric. The thunder fades far off, gentle as a heartbeat slowing down. This world, their world, has ended. But what remains isn't terror, it's tenderness. It's the realization that even in the strangest rituals, the darkest acts, there was always the same fragile desire to be seen, to be heard, to matter in the eyes of something greater. You close your eyes, and the last of the smoke, the drums, the prayers all drift away, like mist rising from stone. And then the sound fades too, leaving only the hush of the rain, quiet, complete, like a candle going out.